Hey there, dirt bike people. I'm Chuck from TrueTech, and today I'll be comparing the Cove 450 Rally with the Husky 701. Dallas from the Traction E-Rag and I were planning a ride on Friday with our friend Andrew to test out the Cove on a dual sport ride. My buddy Kevin sent me a text to see if I had a 690 or a 701 to test yet, which I didn't, so I invited him along. Andrew is on a 350 EXCF, and Kevin is on his 701. Dallas and I are both riding a Cove. Throughout the day, we swapped bikes, so we got 4 different opinions on the Cove and how it compares to the 701. The main categories, of course, are engine, suspension, and chassis geometry / handling. And of course, there are all kinds of accessory options, but I'm not the guy for that. I'm interested in testing and talking about the meat and potatoes of the motorcycle. The biggest difference that everyone noticed immediately is the engine. It's no secret that the Cove lacks in this department. Even if you ride the bike high in the RPM range, it's still not impressive.
Initially I was like, wow, it's got no power, but if you just ride it a gear down, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not breaking loose either.
The engine on the 701 is the exact opposite. When I switched to the 701 about an hour into the ride, I almost scared myself. The front end comes up effortlessly. The power is there down low and it revs out as well. Even if you're too low in the RPM range, it quickly breaks through that chug-a-chug-chug range and starts making power.
This has more grunt horsepower,
Way more.
way more forgiveness of what gear you're in.
Yeah.
If you're in third, you're good. You
So
can go up a hill, downhill, fast, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I can make this break loose anytime.
Oh yeah.
But that, you're right. I saw you try to pull a wheelie and it wasn't there.
That was in second gear. Like
Yeah.
on that thing, if I did that, I'd be like,
Without question.
Yeah.
There's a
This
massive-
thing, well, you can crack a wheelie up in like 4th gear.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. There's so much power on this bike,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Whoa, what a difference.
Oh yeah.
These are different motorcycles for sure.
When it comes to riding challenging terrain, there are pros and cons to both of these engines. If you can control the 701, it has the power to do anything you ask, but it's so powerful that it can really be a handful. The Cove, on the other hand, never feels like a handful. It's easy to control in choppy terrain or up hills, and it has enough power to do anything you would normally encounter on a dual sport trip. It might struggle in deep sand or on long, steep hill climbs, but I've ridden it up plenty of hill climbs at this point, and the power isn't an issue that will keep you from conquering obstacles. Now, after riding the 701 and getting back on the Cove, we did a stretch of gravel, and that's where I really wished I was back on the 701. When you're on a wide road and you have a handful of horsepower, the 701 makes you smile. Whether it's coming into the power after a corner or pulling the wheel up wherever you want, the power is fun. It would be nice if the Cove had a lot more power. Now, I'm not sure if you'll be surprised or not, but the engine is basically the only part where the 701 might have a real advantage. The suspension on the 701 sucks, plain and simple. The only place a rider might prefer the 701 suspension is on long, boring road trips or on washboarded gravel. The 701 feels like it's set up for a nursing home resident. It bottoms out harshly if you hit a pothole wrong. This 701 has 4 CS forks, and if I'm right, I think the 690 comes with the Explorer or maybe even the Apex forks. But either way, the suspension sucks. The 4 CS fork might be the worst fork since inverted forks were invented. I think I might prefer Marzocchi's actually. I think the Explorer fork can be set up nicely for dual sport riding, but KTM doesn't do that. It's so soft that it's dangerous, and the Apex forks are even worse. The Cove forks look to me like they're designed after Showa closed chambers, and they're so good that I wouldn't change the valving at all, even if I had the shim stacks apart.
Suspension's like really good. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Lots of bottoming resistance. Like it doesn't bottom out at all.
we should just take the suspension off the Cove and put it on the
That's
701.
exactly what I was just thinking.
Yeah.
I wonder if it would work.
This feels bigger though.
Yeah.
I don't know if you, does that feel smaller?
Yeah, but like not really that much. Like the
Obvious.
only thing about it, like especially riding here, is the front suspension's terrible. Like, did you bottom out quite a bit?
Yep. As soon as I hit some chop, it was very like, oh, I don't like this very much.
So this is much more stable than that.
I don't know if it's more stable because this is a very stable platform, but it's
The shock is great too. I didn't find it bucky or wallowy. For a novice rider, the Cove forks will likely be on the stiff side, but I'm sure that can be changed by opening up a bit of mid-valve float or removing a few shims. If you want to make any of the WP options on the 690 or the 701 work well, you're looking at a much more involved job. All of this said, keep in mind that I'm an intermediate enduro rider. If you're closer to a novice or if you're coming from the adventure side, you may find the Cove too stiff, and you may even find the 690 more to your liking. For a comparison though, the 690 is a couch and the Cove is a Ferrari. Now onto the chassis geometry. Some of you may be wondering what the difference is between geometry and suspension. The suspension is strictly what is inside of those magic cylinders we call forks and a shock. Geometry plays the biggest role in how the bike handles. The rake angle, the forward-rear bias, the peg position, trail number, and lots more. What stood out to me when switching back and forth was that the front end on the 701 feels much lower. As an enduro rider, that's very unsettling to me. The Cove front end feels planted and ready to take a hit. The 701 feels relaxed. If the Cove is a rat terrier, the 701 is a Rottweiler. The 701 is powerful, but not nimble. I don't want to say the 701 is twitchy or unstable. It's really not unstable. Getting it to turn actually takes more input than the Cove, but that low front end is unnerving to me. As I rode the 701, I got used to it, and I know I would feel comfortable on it in a couple of rides. But I do like the stance of the Cove significantly better, and that may be totally subjective. If you're coming from the street, I suspect you may not feel that the front end is low at all. That leads me into what I think the bikes are best suited for. I think both bikes are definitely in the same category. Dallas and I have been talking extensively about what categories exist and how they relate to one another. If you're interested in hearing about that, keep an eye on the Traction eReg YouTube channel, and I'm sure it will be coming out soon. In my latest video, I said I think that the Cove is an ADV bike. I think I'll modify that opinion a little and say it's a dual sport. I feel like the two are very close together on the spectrum, but dual sport may include more single track or single track capability, and ADV may include more road sections, but there's definitely a lot of overlap. Within that dual sport category is where I'm putting both the 690 and the Cove. The Cove is toward the dirt side and the 690 is toward the adventure side. On tighter trails, the 701 engine isn't needed, and in fact it might be a hindrance, but on open trails and gravel roads, it's so much fun to have that power on tap. The suspension on the 701 puts its tail between its legs as soon as things get rough, but it's comfortable on the more tame terrain. The Cove can handle aggressive riding, and even jumping it isn't an issue, but less aggressive riders have already complained that it feels stiff. The chassis geometry is the same. The Cove is on the nimble side and the 701 is on the stable side. If you ride the 701 in choppy terrain though, it's harder to control because it likes going straight. If you ride the Cove on gravel roads, it might feel a bit squirrely compared to the 701. Another little side note that I think is worth mentioning, the seat on the 701 is a little wider, and I found that toward the end of our ride, the seat on the Cove was feeling a little narrow. My butt was getting sore. At the end of the day, I think the 690 might be the closest comparison to the Cove that I can think of. Now, after all of this comparison, I find myself forgetting that this bike is made in China. Personally, I know that the people of China are certainly capable of putting out excellent quality, but when it comes to motorcycles and kids' toys, we don't expect that. I've ridden lots of other Chinese bikes in the past, and they always feel like Chinese bikes. They even smell like Chinese bikes. You know that smell when you walk into a Harbor Freight or a Princess Auto? You know the smell that I'm talking about. The Cove doesn't even smell like that. When I'm riding it, I don't think about where the bike comes from. I think about how it compares to the 690 or the 450L or the DR650. The Cove feels like a legitimate motorcycle, and it's worthy of being compared to any other legitimate bike on the market. Now, we've only put a couple hundred kilometers on these bikes, so reliability isn't something I'm ready to comment on yet, but I can say with confidence that the Cove is a true contender when it comes to performance, and I think it might be the first Chinese motorcycle to really be worthy of such a designation. If you think I earned a thumbs up on this video, I'd appreciate if you let the algorithm know, and if you think I might continue to provide value to your motorcycle paradigm, I'm sure you know how to increase the odds of seeing more of my offerings in the future. If you have suggestions for how I can improve, I'm even more interested in hearing about that. If you want to see what I'm up to on a more day-to-day basis, I share lots of dirt bike related content on Instagram, and I keep my clothes on for nearly all of it. Thanks a lot for watching.